Hi guys, Jeff in Myrtle Beach here. Today I want to do for you the pros and cons of Myrtle Beach, considering I've been living here for about 10 years now. I'm going to try to keep this video at only about 20 minutes. This was a little trickier than I thought. When I started laying it out, I realized it's a lot more gray and your personal perception and outlook on certain things. But my hope is it can keep it completely unbiased. But unfortunately, there is one slight bias that I am actually from up north. So this will be from a northerner's perspective. Keep that in mind. If you're interested in other Myrtle Beach videos, you can subscribe to my feed below. I actually have quite a few. I want to say like 50 or 60 different videos of Myrtle Beach, different places to go, different things to see and do. Also, if you could like the video, I would really appreciate it if you do. And it just kind of helps out my little YouTube thing here. So, alrighty, starting off the cons. This was, like I said, this was a lot harder than I thought. The cons, I guess because I'm biased on living here, but it's just kind of factual to me that this is a great place to live. Cons, I guess people could look at the seasons as a downside. If you're from up north and you love the snow, you love leaves, the times of the seasons. I'm not one that cares much about that. I know that there are people who do, and they often look at that, but I think you'd have to weigh that with the other pros, which we'll get to in a minute. So there is that weather and seasonal issue, which brings me to another thing that is tradition. And when I say that, I mean like you have these town feels. You have, I often think about it in this town that it's something that they could really use down here, and that is to be a little more caring of the locals, as you would call it. But this area is growing so massively that it is turning into only people who live here. It is not just your simple vacation town any longer. So there are no Italian picnics, right? There are some stuff, but it's just not like everyone is connected with that nice small town feel that you might have if you're from any of the towns up north, Buffalo and Pennsylvania, Ohio, New York, those smaller outskirt towns. If you live right in New York, I can't even imagine you might be interested in coming down here. There's an awful lot to do in actual New York City. But another thing, kind of along that lines, people have a perception of the down south hillbilly type of vibe. Now, I put this on the cons, but again, I think it's very gray. This town has a lot of transplants, so you won't be dealing with as southerners the way you think. They are here, but they're very few. It's more of a 10%. And then as you go inland, depending on if you should choose to live in Conway, or maybe if you choose to go down a little farther, or even up a little farther from Myrtle Beach, depending on where you decide to rent or own, you could end up living around more southerners, and then that does create a much different vibe. But for the most part, this entire area is based of northerners, so you're not really going to have that issue very much. But there is that small amount that you can call a con if you want to. Meeting people. I feel like, and that brings me right into bars and clubs, which I put on there. This was very hard to come up with a cons list, believe it or not, because I don't see many things wrong with this area. But meeting people was definitely easier up north. If you are a single person, I feel like, there's more small town bars up north and places where people would get together. Here, you do have more vacationers. People are much more disconnected here. People are much more not as quick to maybe get to know your neighbor. Don't get me wrong, when you meet your neighbor, they're going to be happier because it's a fun place, and everybody's happier here, definitely. But there's not that instant, I have to know you connection the way it was in school. In smaller towns, and let me not say up north so much, but smaller towns. I've lived in Arkansas, Oklahoma, I've lived in Florida, I've lived in California, so I do have a very broad perspective on this, which is a good thing for you guys. So bars, there's definitely not a lot of bars here. You don't have, if you are a drinker who loves bars, this might not be the town for you. It's just not the way it is in other towns in the USA where you have these wonderful little, but we do have some, and you will find a lot of people still kind of, having a little bit of a connection, but it's not the way it was in other small towns, because keep in mind this started off as a vacation town. Traffic getting worse, especially on 501, the Carolina Forest area. Traffic is getting bad around here. They keep kind of growing. This is just nothing but a growing town. So traffic is kind of bad. I'm going to speed it up here. Downtown, trash ghetto. I was being very harsh when I wrote it down. Downtown is not, I think people want to think, oh, Myrtle Beach. It's like a lot of downtowns, I've seen lots of downtowns. Again, Florida, I've seen it up north, even in Cali. Your downtown area can sometimes be transient. It can sometimes be where people kind of go right out a little bit to live. So it's not this perfect, beautiful little area. There is a place like Santa Barbara, California, that is the case, and there are small towns. So if that's something that you currently have, you may want to consider that. Don't go right into Myrtle Beach and expect to experience Myrtle Beach. That is a mistake that people often make. You want to pull up my videos and see Broadway at the beach, Barefoot Landing, the Marsh Walk. You want to see these other places that are Myrtle Beach and not downtown, because downtown is just hotels and people walk the boulevard, like a 2-block area. So it's not this wonderful, great downtown that you want it to be. With that being said, though, it's still kind of cool. So you can check out my videos. I have a video of the boulevard. You can check that out. Families up north. Yes, your family's probably up north. Keep that in mind. I know in our case, in a lot of people's cases, the family ends up moving down here. So that may not be such a bad thing. Depending on how your family is, but you may have to go back up there and see them. So schools, pros and cons. I can't put that schools on the pros or the cons list. Schools are a wishy-washy, just like a lot of this is, but schools, they are educationally better up north. If your son, you want him to go to Harvard and be a doctor, you may want to consider keeping him up north. If you're rich like that, and then you're probably going to end up moving to one of these beautiful towns when you're loaded. But for the rest of us, we don't have it like that, and it's not the question of just education. It is also a question of quality of life and how your kids are going to grow up and the friends they're going to have. And, if a lot of you remember from school, that peer pressure and those kids are more important. And for that, this area is better. So your kids are going to have a better friends here. They're going to have better schooling here. It's way more light in the area. The kids aren't meeting each other in an alleyway, beating each other up after school the way they were up north, So it is for that reason better, but I do know that the education, the teachers up north are better. So that can go either way depending on the way you look at it. Now, that's it for that. And again, cons were not easy for me. I have a ton of pros, and I'm going to try to speed right through them. It's definitely a better quality of life. The weather, sunshine, it's gorgeous. In the area that I lived up north, I had a lot of overcast, and no matter where you live, in a lot of states, you're going to have more overcast than you do here. Here, you're going to have a lot more sunny days, which make you feel better. You're getting vitamin B, I guess, from the sun, but you do tend to feel better. A lot more people were miserable where I lived up north. That's not the case here. And that's a serious thing, but in my area, it was a coal mining town, and there was actually a lot of rooted issues, and the money wasn't there, so it did make a very rough type of living. Here, you have a lot more people who are well off, and they all came here for a better life, so everybody wants to be happier here. There's ponds everywhere. That's something that not a lot of people realize, but it's just a fun thing that's kind of nice. You got these ponds with these ducks, and they're every quarter mile all over the whole town. What they are is, I guess they use them for retention ponds, like Walmart, and everyone uses them so that the rain, they don't have like sewers like they do up north. They just let the water go into a pond because the water evaporates because the weather's always warm. So in turn, you get all these wonderful ponds, which is very nice to look at. We have palm trees, amazing. Who doesn't love them, right? Things to do. I mean, I just wrote down a few, but you can check out all my videos: dog parks, Broadway at the beach, Barefoot Landing, Marsh Walk, water parks, shopping, Tanger outlets, the mall. We do have a great mall. You would think that we don't. As I said, this is much more of a living town than people think it is. You would think maybe it's just vacation, but it's growing and growing and growing with more and more new properties being built and more communities being built and gated communities and so forth. We have a flea market that's awesome. We have piers that have restaurants on the pier that are fantastic. Downtown Boulevard is a fun thing to do. It is great. We go down there all the time to walk around. Like I said, you can check out that video I have. Nicer people. I do believe that people are nicer here. I think there's kind of reasons for that because people kind of want to come here to be nicer. Work, jobs, self-employed. I've been self-employed since I've been here. I've had no problem doing that. There are jobs and work here, but what I have found is that you come with you. So if you're miserable and can't find a job up north, you might be miserable and can't find a job down south. Keep that in mind. There are jobs here, there is work here, and if you have an education, you probably already know that. There is Boeing, there are factories and places like that here, but if you just want to bitch and say there's nothing here, there's a lot more retail here than there is up north, a ton more retail, so if you're complaining that that's all there is retail, we have more of it. So whatever. Pizza is fantastic. Everybody wants to go to another town and say there's not good pizza here. I bring it up all the time. We have, I think, the best pizza in the world here, and I'm saying that seriously. Guys from New York City, they move down here, they sell their place for $2 million in New York City, they move down here, they can buy a house for only $300,000, they can open a pizzeria for $500,000, and they're giving you the best pizza in the world. We have over 5-6 places I could send. Gino's is ridiculous. I'm talking New York City quality brick oven pizza, mozzarella, out of control. And I am a pizza guy in Philly, and I was born and partially raised in Philly. I love my food, and I'm telling you, it's good pizza. We have good food. We don't have a lot of smaller places. We have these that are good. We have a lot of larger places. We have like Mark Wahlberg and Kobe and Brazilian Grill and Paula Dean's place and Senior Frogs. You have things that are kind of like, if you've ever been to Orlando, you see that they get these big places. So that's kind of a plus. But then if you look at the smaller places, you could, sometimes you want those small. We do have some smaller Italian places that are a little popular, but they're just not the way they are up north. But in turn, we have these huge places that are a blast that you don't get to see other places. So that's a cool thing. 4th of July is the absolute best in the world. I think it's because of their fireworks laws down here. The best there is. Weather is fantastic. I've lived, the weather, honestly, Santa Barbara, California is the best place in the whole world to live. That's the end of story. Check it out if you don't believe me. But you can't afford to live there for most people, unless you have 10 million. And if you do, shut this video off, go look up Santa Barbara, or you probably already know what I'm talking about because you've been there. I couldn't afford to stay there. I love Santa Barbara. My heart will always be there. But so I picked this place methodically. If I go any farther, and I've lived in Florida, if you go any farther south, you hit humidity and hotter weather. If you go any farther north, like even up to Wilmington, just an hour away, you get colder. So this is the warmest, one of the most moderate places you're going to get on the East Coast with cheap living. Well, not even with cheap living, just period. It's going to be the best place for weather on the East Coast. It's right in the middle. Like I said, I methodically looked on the maps and pulled that up to make sure that that's why I came here. The building is unbelievable, though, how much has changed just since I've been here. House cost, that brings me right to housing cost and cost of living. I want to jump first with trailer parks because I know that people often ask it, and I think one of the reasons why that happens is because people consider Florida, and you consider living in, going down and being retired and maybe living in a trailer park down in Florida. And they're beautiful down there. I've seen them. I've experienced them. I know what they're like down there. I had like a godfather, somebody who lived down there, and it was gorgeous. But that's not necessary in this town. And actually, I think some of these trailer park people actually pay more money than you would pay to live because they're right on the beach. These trailer parks are not like your regular trailer park. I mean, they have like swimming pools in them, and they've turned them into little resorts almost. So it's different than what you think here. It's not your typical trailer park. So if you look at that and you look at that as a cheap way to live, you might not find out that it is that cheap or it's that great of an option. It is just as cheap, if not cheaper, to live in a home. The main thing I want to stress with the housing is that everything is brand new. It's all brand new. You can literally rent an apartment or a condo that has been built within the last year or two for only $550, $600. Now, it might be third floor of a four-story building overlooking a pond with an elevator, but it's going to be brand new. And if you've ever vaulted ceilings and just really gorgeous stuff, amazing. It really is. The cost of living is extremely cheap here, and we are building at an unreasonable rate, which is why if you have the money to buy, you want to get here quickly. The cost of housing is going to go up unless, I said to my wife, unless the builders build too fast for the people coming in, then maybe it could stay lower. But don't hesitate. Buy sooner than later if you're considering it. And new housing is the way to go here. Everybody lives in new homes. That is something you don't see anywhere else in the USA, I feel, not this much. Because they had all empty land here. They had all empty land to build. And so they're building all these brand new places that have just been built within the last 7 or 8 years. It's all new sheetrock homes. So it's pretty awesome. And they're building them just to either rent them out or to sell them. So it's really cool communities, gated communities with pools right by the beach. It's really awesome. Okay, Florida option versus California versus the Midwest. I mean, you don't have beaches. Texas is a gorgeous place. I have been there. They don't have the beaches, but Texas is gorgeous. Canada, I don't know enough about Canada, and I'd like to hope from what I've seen that Canada obviously looks like a beautiful place. I'm just trying to think like the whole USA as a whole, but as far as Florida, this is a better option, period. It's cheaper. It's just as clean and normal. We get to make U-turns too. This feels like Florida. When you go up a little more towards Wilmington, it starts to feel like Virginia. But if you don't know this area very well, Myrtle Beach feels like Florida. It has that southern feeling a little bit. But we're all transplants in the town of Myrtle Beach, so we're from Ohio, New York, Philadelphia, that kind of thing. Keep that in mind. Everyone thinks you're going to be down south with a bunch of Southerners, but you're not. You're actually, all your neighbors, every one of my neighbors is from Ohio or New York or somewhere like that. Not one of my neighbors. I mean, I don't know of any Southern. And most of the Southerners, they're not that happy about what's happening here. I mean, I understand it, but it is what it is. Money makes better living. Money makes better living in a town with no money. Myrtle Beach is the best. My point there is that you can live, there are a lot of beautiful towns. Obviously, if you Google the best town in America, some of the best towns in America are the ones where they have lots of money. I remember where that little girl, Jean Benet, was killed. It was this gorgeous little town in Colorado, but they were all rich. That's how Santa Barbara is. So if you can afford to live in a rich town, your options are obviously, you have tons of options. So this is not really for you, maybe. But if you're trying to save money or you don't have a lot of money, Myrtle Beach is a way that you get to live, honestly, like the other half of the world, in newer construction, in a gorgeous beach town for the same price as you were living anywhere else in the USA. And I truly mean that. It's very, very cheap to live here. Check on Craigslist, look around. Be weary of the that's one thing I want to say real quick. Be leery of the real estate guys. They often try to put all the Northerners in. I'm not joking. They actually do, especially if it's a Southern realtor. They tend to try not to tell them better places to live. Our realtor actually mentioned that to us, and Surfside is the better area. Pawleys Island, they want to still protect that. They put everybody in Carolina Forest. Carolina Forest is getting out of control with the traffic and everything. There's not enough stores over there. It's not the better place to live. And New Yorkers will come up and they'll immediately stick them in Carolina Forest. Carolina Forest, just because there's not enough stuff over there, you're too close to Myrtle, which I already told you is not that great. It's Surfside, Litchfield, Pawleys Island is the best area to live right now, period, the end. North Myrtle's nice, but not as nice as Surfside to Litchfield. keep that in mind. Ask me in the comments if you have any questions with this stuff. I will be happy to help you out. If there's things I missed, I want to make another video and talk more about it. So, you know, miserable people, you come with you, and miserable people go everywhere. You know, that's just one more point I'd like to stress, is that, you know, we have people down here. There's one person in particular that I can think of that is miserable, and he was miserable up north. He's miserable here. Now he's only 3 blocks from the beach. He's still miserable. You know, if you're looking for this place to change how you feel, obviously, that's not going to happen, I guess. But I wanted to be in a place where people were happier, where there was more sunshine that made me feel better. So, and I got exactly what I wanted, and I am extremely, extremely happy here. You know, the only thing left on my bucket list is maybe to travel to other countries now, but I am extremely happy. Like I said, the one thing I wish, like, I have a couple pet peeves with the way the town is run or something, and I would love to be on city council or something, but I'd love to see just a few, like I said, traditions and things where the people who live here get together a little more often. That's starting to happen anyway, just because, like I said, the real estate and this town will eventually be nothing but residential and not as much a place to vacation to the way it's going. I mean, communities are all being built next to the beach. So with that being said, you know, vacationers, well, I mean, they'll still be able to check into the hotels and check out the boulevard, but and hopefully that'll get cleaned up with the amount of money that's coming here. But buy soon if you can afford it, and if not, get down here and start enjoying it, because it's a wonderful place to live until the housing ever goes up. But I would say we're good for at least another 8 years until it grows out of control. So, but that's it, guys. New construction is the best feeling in the world if you live in an older home up north. I know in our town we had all older homes, but this new construction is to die for. So, okay, guys, that's it. Thank you very much for watching my video. I do appreciate it. I've been kind of experimenting with some different things lately and thinking about some different things. It has gotten colder this year. This is the first year that we've ever gotten a cold spell like this. In previous years, I always said I was able to wear my shorts through almost the entire winter to the dog park. But and it was only a couple days where I had to put pants on. This year, I have literally for 30 days now having to wear pants. So we finally have a cold snap out of, like I said, 8, 9 years I've been living here, something like that. We have a major cold snap this year, but it typically is warm even through the winter. That's kind of got me not getting out as much, doing videos out at the beach and things like that as often lately. So, thank you, and I'm self-employed, so I've been focusing on other things too, but thank you. Once again, guys, any questions at all, just ask in the comments. I do appreciate it. Do me a huge favor and like the video if this has helped you out at all. It just helps me in my little YouTube algorithm to kind of get a little more viewers and a little more subscribers. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. Jeff, out. Bye-bye.